Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the biggest storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Sunday, March 1st. In the spirit of full disclosure, we want there to be no secrets between you, the fans, and us here at Cracked Racquets. It's a hungover Sunday for this host, hungover all across the board as well. Super producer Daniel Westoff behind me. We had the chance to enjoy ourselves the same sort of championship Saturday that we as tennis fans got to see at the ATP and WTA Tour levels yesterday, so apologies if the voice sounds a little worn down. I suppose given these past 3 weeks, you listeners may be used to that at this point. But we had a really fun championship Saturday, and it's rare that you get two ATP finals, two WTA finals, all being played on a Saturday, not a Sunday. But that was the case this week. The action in Dubai, in Doha, and of course in Acapulco, all coming to a conclusion. Some fun, really fun results throughout the board, all for various different reasons. If you like next gen versus big three battles, you got two of them on the men's side in Nadal, Fritz, in Djokovic, Tsitsipas on the women's side. I suppose Sabalenka also next gen as she took on Petra Kvitova, and then of course Leylah Fernandez, the 17-year-old Canadian sensation, taking on Heather Watson in that final in Acapulco. So we want to talk all about all of those. We want to also, of course, set the scene for some championship Sunday action. We do still have another final going on in Santiago, Chile, two ATP Challenger finals. One, of course, that's in Ohio involving J.J. Wolf, should surprise no one. And then Cressy Rinderknech Part 2 in Calgary. So fun tennis across the board. Want to talk about all of that today. The reason we were able to do these weekend mini breaks, of course, thanks to our friends at Diadem Sports, and you know the deal. Diadem, helping tennis players elevate their game by designing the most innovative performance tennis gear on the planet. Their racket string technology developed with your performance in mind. And look, each of their rackets have been carefully crafted for a specific type of playing style, whether it's power, explosiveness, precision, control, finesse, whatever it may be, they've got the options for you. Their Nova 100, their Elevate 98, their Solstice Power strings, their Elite XT strings, they've got it all. And, of course, they've also got great swag. Look good, feel good, play good. You're not going to play well unless you're comfortable with your racket, unless you're comfortable with your strings. But you're also not going to play comfortable unless you know you have the right gear. For me, I'm not a big polyester guy up top. I don't like wearing the dry fits. I like the cotton tees. I like to keep things simple. And, I'm also a man of the hoodie. And they've got it all at Diadem. I mean, great gear, great rackets, great string technology. And, of course, you listeners with our promo code CR50 can get access to all of that stuff for 50% off. So, take advantage of that. Again, we want to thank them so much. They've been so kind with their support for us here at Cracked Racquets. We would be so grateful if you, the listener, return the favor. So Diadem Sports, CR50, get yourself in the tennis gear you need to bring out your best tennis game moving forward. That being said, talk about guys and gals bringing their best tennis game moving forward. It was Championship Saturday, and we got some championship-level performances. Let's start at which we have all week in Acapulco. Actually, let's switch things up. Let's start in Doha this time because we're going to get to the Acapulco. I want to do Djokovic and Nadal together because that they both won titles. There's a ton of fun Twitter stats to go along with that, so we'll save that for the end. Let's start with the women, though, in Doha, where our winner, Aryna Sabalenka, the 21-year-old sensation, we all know when she hits big, she can, when she's playing her best, she can beat anyone on tour. She already had two premier mandatory titles coming into this event all week long. I mean, she has been so good. You look for Sabalenka. She dropped the set in her first-round match against Kontaveit. She dropped the set against Sai Zhang in the quarterfinals, but 4-3 against Kuznetsova in the semifinals. Here she takes on a Petra Kvitova, who had been pushed to the limit the past two matches, 6-6 against Ons Jabeur. That was hard hitting. Yesterday, a 3-set battle with Ashley Barty. That was really good as well. I should say 2 days ago. Yesterday, it was Kvitova versus Sabalenka. And yes, Ons Jabeur hits the ball big. Yes, Ashley Barty can play aggressive. But there's no warm-up for an Aryna Sabalenka. I mean, her serve, her power off of both wings, she just blasts away. And I thought what was so particularly notable in this one for Sabalenka, she played big down the center. Oftentimes, she wasn't trying to, rip a winner on the first ball. She just wanted to get depth and pace into the Kvitova body And Kvitova, struggled to respond. Kvitova would, the second she would try to go to the outer thirds, it just wouldn't be an aggressive enough ball. And so you're opening up space and letting Sabalenka be the aggressor. And Sabalenka was able to come through with that aggression. She ends up taking this match 6-3, 6-3. Sabalenka 5 of 5 in terms of saving break points in this match. She goes 3 of 8 herself in terms of conversion rate. It was really one break a set that separated them for Sabalenka. She got that break in the first early on, held on to it, or maybe she got it at the end, excuse me. No, I think she got it early on and just held on to it. I mean, she was just so aggressive. You can tell, even though Kvitova made 68% of her first serves, Kvitova on those points, 17 of 36, a 47% conversion rate. I mean, versus Sabalenka, who made 79% of her first serves, won 73% of those points, 50% of her second serve points. As I mentioned, she was saving all 5 break points she faced. She was just so confident, and she played so big. And, her relationship, I believe her coach is Dmitry Tursunov. They've had an on and off relationship at multiple points throughout their career. But clearly, whatever they're doing is working. As I mentioned, the big stat for Sabalenka, it's her 6th career title, her 3rd at the Premier 5 level. Here she beats Kontaveit, Sakkari, Zhang, Kuznetsova, Kvitova. Those are all exceptional wins. And you look in the live rankings right now for Sabalenka. What's crazy is, despite winning another Premier 5 title, she's still at number 11 in the world with this win, 1 spot ahead of Petra Kvitova, who's at number 12. But for Sabalenka, you look at what she did last year in terms of at Indian Wells, and she really doesn't have that crazy of a performance to defend. So she's positioned herself really well. You look at where she's at Indian Wells last year, 4th round Indian Wells, which is pretty good, but only 2nd round Miami. I mean, she's got the chance to really make a jump here into the top 10, and if she continues to show this level, I mean, what's perhaps most notable, I think Ben Rothenberg pointed this out on Twitter, although if you follow the WTA game, I mean, it's an observation you can make. Sabalenka, keep in mind she's only 21 years old. That does feel particularly relevant. Again, you can throw her in the list with all of these young players. Sophia Kenin, 21 years old. I mean, Bianca Andreescu, 19. Ashley Barty, 23. Belinda Bencic, 22. Osaka, 22. Sabalenka's right there with them, age contemporarized. But I mean, for Sabalenka, she's made, I think, only one 4th round, 1 second week at a Grand Slam thus far in her career in singles. In fact, that 4th round came at the 2018 U.S. Open. Her last 5 results: 3rd round, 2nd round, 1st round, 2nd round. Then she lost 1st round this year in Australia. It's when, not if, right? I think it's very clear. Aryna Sabalenka, and she showed it multiple times throughout her career. You look at the top 10 wins she's accumulated in her life, plenty of them. She's 2-0 against Pliskova, 1-0 against Garbine Muguruza, 3-2 against Ashley Barty. Now she's beaten Simona Halep before, beaten 2-2 against Petra Kvitova, 1-0 against Elina Svitolina. The point, 1-0 against Bianca Andreescu, 2-4 against Kiki Bertens. The point is, she can compete against and beat all of her contemporaries. It's just a matter of, can she put it together for a 2-week stretch at the majors? We haven't seen her do it yet, but I mean, the more and more she proves it, week in, week out at the other events, it really does continue to be a matter of if, not when, not if, because I think we can all see when she plays her best, when she's hitting big, there's just very little you can do to stop Sabalenka, who again looked so good throughout this run to the title. And for Petra Kvitova, a really great result for her this week as well, by the way. Let's not forget. I mean, for Kvitova, she's not going to get the flash as some of the other ones, but she's still age 29. I mean, she's still got some really good tennis left in her. She was a finalist last year at the Australian Open. This was a really good result for Petra Kvitova. Yes, she didn't end up winning in the final, but for Kvitova, you look at her results throughout the week. I mean, wins over Barty, over White-Hot Shapur, over Yelena Ostapenko as well. It's been a really good week for Kvitova, and I think, overall, a fairly good start for her season in particular, given that she got that revenge match against Ashley Barty from the Australian Open. She got that win under her belt, so she's got to be feeling confident heading into this Sunshine Duo stretch as well. That was the action in Doha. Let's flip over to Acapulco now, but start again on the women's side, because it was a fascinating matchup in that final. Leylah Fernandez, the 17-year-old Canadian, taking on Heather Heather Watson, the 27-year-old, I believe, British player Watson, going into the semifinals this weekend, was the only player inside the top 100. And look, in her semifinal match over Shi Yuwang, the incredibly talented young Chinese player, she got to look at a lefty who played big, who played aggressive, and I think that really helped Heather Watson in the early stages here against the lefty Fernandez, who moves just so well around the court, so many tools at her. Again, I compared her on yesterday's Weekend Mini Break podcast, and these Weekend Mini Breaks, of course, for you Patreon subscribers only. I compared her to Sofia Kenin in just all the different tools and the different things she can do to hurt you, take balls early, go short angle, go slice, go down the line, just, all of these different things. She's comfortable moving forward, swinging volleys, overheads, drop shots, all of these different things. She may not play the slice as often as Kenin does. I also think she moves a little bit better than Sofia Kenin, but just so many different ways to hurt you. And I'll tell you what, I think nerves for the 17-year-old Canadian, I mentioned this yesterday, they were always going to be a factor, and I think early on they really were. Watson raced out to a 3-love double break and then ultimately a 5-2 lead. Now Fernandez got two of those games back. Watson ultimately able to serve for that first set 6-4, but there's no doubt Leylah Fernandez came out shaky. And then for Fernandez, this second set was about as entertaining as you can get, folks. Watson fights off, I think it was 4 Fernandez set points in that 5-6 service game in the second. They go to the breaker, Heather Watson racing out to a 6-2 lead. Leylah Fernandez comes all the way back, gets it to 6-all. Again, the physicality in these points. Heather Watson, clearly the more powerful of the two players, at least particularly at this point in her career. She was swinging away, and Fernandez was tracking everything down. She was throwing up moon balls, high top spin, slice, just short angle, taking balls early, doing all the things she needs to do when you're at such a power disadvantage like she was. And she played sensational tennis to get that tiebreaker back. She ends up drawing an approach shot error from Heather Watson to take the set 10-8, and then you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, she was down that big first set deficit, but she was Leylah Fernandez really in control throughout that second set, just scrapping her way and clawing. I like to say this phrase a lot. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. But that's when you kind of remembered in that third set, oh, yeah, she's 17 years old. I just think the physical experience for Watson, the physicality that she just was able to continue. That second set was, I think, 80 minutes, like 83 minutes or something. This was a 2-hour, 45-minute match. And I think just in that third set, Fernandez just spent so much of her gas tank in that second set to just steal it, to stay alive, both not just physically but emotionally as well, right? You come back from 4 championship points down to take that set. Evident, you can only imagine what that does for one's mindset, but what a week for the young Canadian Leylah Fernandez. Again, she fought off 9 match points in this match. Ultimately, it's Heather Watson running away with that third set. She ends up taking it here 6-4, 6-7, 6-1. For Watson, again, she was just the more aggressive of the two, the more pop on her serve. She only made 60% of them, but she won 79% of those first serve points when she was able to play +1 tennis. Take control of points as she was often able to do, and then the flip side for her on the return point, she holds Fernandez to 13 of 33 on second serve point. She was did a better job of being the aggressor between the two. And again, it's a testament to Leylah Fernandez that she was able to scrap and claw and just stay alive in this one. And again, you're projecting her upside. You're like, oh, all of the tools. She knocks off so many check marks. She checks off so many boxes, on the list of things you want from a young tennis player. And this was a fantastic performance, but ultimately, in the end, Heather Watson showing that experience. It's the 10th match point that gets the job done, and she gets her 4th career singles title, I believe, I guess it's not that early in the career anymore, but 4th career title, and she's back inside the top 50 with this result, number 49. So great place to be as you enter the clay court portion of the year for Leylah Fernandez, just to put a bow on where she'll wrap up at the end of this tournament. Jump 64 spots all the way up to number 126 in the live rankings. And again, age restrictions aside, that's a really good place to be if you're Leylah Fernandez. So that's the action on the women's side. Now let's talk about the men. And you can't talk men's tennis over the past 15 years, it feels like, without talking about Rafa Nadal and Novak Djokovic. I believe I saw a stat on Twitter. It was something like the fifth, maybe sixth time they'd played a final, or maybe it was the fourth in the same week in different events throughout their careers. And, it's what we've learned to expect from these guys. They're both so good. For Rafa, his only losses this year on the season coming to Djokovic in the ATP Cup, and then in Australia, that loss he took, that 4-set loss he took to Dominic Thiem. But outside of that, Nadal has looked just so good. And let's start with him here with his match in Acapulco. I mean, for Rafa Nadal, we said it yesterday. I think we nailed it on the head when we said it, and I apologize for that pause, but Taylor Fritz is suited to match up with Nadal, because if you say, hey, Taylor, you need to put any topspin on the ball. Your opponent's going to provide all of the topspin. You can just bunt down on everything, go after your shots, play big forehands, big backhands. He's going to be 6 feet behind the baseline, so you can just slug away from back there, go after your first serve, all of these different things. I do think Fritz, and by the way, I do think Fritz is also well suited to play lefties because of his backhand, because Rafa wants to throw junk to his backhand side. Fritz will say, okay, that's fine with me. We want to play backhands, that works. So, I'm happy to go backhand down the line with you. I'm happy to do all of these different things. But we also said, despite all of that, the biggest concern, I also said, Taylor Fritz, from an athleticism standpoint, just the way Rafa gets you stretched to the outer thirds, it's a real stretch, right? It's not just that he's getting the ball out there, it's the spin and the angle he's producing. The ball's going off of the court. It's not just outside of the center. It's angled off the court. And, for Rafa, I think this stat screams to the fact that when he was able to play +1 tennis, when he was able to dictate on serve, he only made 63% of his points, but he only dropped 9 service points in the match, 24 of 29 on the first serve, 13 of 17 on the second serve. Considering that in those 9 points, 2 of them were double faults, that means he dropped 7 points really on serve once the point got started. He only faced 1 break point. It came in the second set, and he fought it off pretty quickly with a serve +1 forehand. I mean, I thought Fritz did a really good job, and when he could dictate, he slugged away at the baseline. I can't emphasize enough how impressive it was to me. He's not overwhelmed by anyone's pace, by the quality of anyone's ball, and we've seen it when he's matched up with Dominic Thiem. We've seen it now when he matched up with Rafa. The more topspin, the bigger his opponent's playing, the bigger Taylor Fritz is able to play, and that's why I think it bodes very well for him moving forward. And again, 64% of his first serves go in. He goes 21 of 30 on those points. The problem was, even when he was trying to go after the second serve, still 6 of 17 on those second serve points. It's just when Rafa got him moving and, going side to side, that's when it's all Rafa all the time. I also thought Rafa did a really good job whenever Fritz would throw a slice in the air. Rafa didn't let it bounce. Fritz, really good anticipator, but Rafa took that ball as an overhead just to take time away from Fritz, and that was a really good performance from Rafa. And again, you look at, just the stats that Rafa's accomplished now with these wins. And I mean, I'm going to try and get them all, folks. We talk about what he's done. I think now this is his sixth this isn't his 6th consecutive year, excuse me. Let's get the Rafa only stats. I've got a lot of Djokovic ones set up here. I apologize for that. For Rafa, you talk about what he's accomplished. He was the youngest player ever to win Acapulco. He now becomes the oldest player to ever win Acapulco with this final. 17 straight years that Rafa Nadal's competed in an ATP final. You look elsewhere, he's just done so many different things throughout his, where do you even go? The guy just gets better and better and better. And it's just, it's just ridiculous. There's nothing you can even say at this point. He's accomplished it all. You like it, he's accomplished it. You talk about most titles for these guys after the age of 30 right now. And by the way, the best Twitter account for all of these facts that Rafa won about how many consecutives came from Enrico Riva here from @OnlyRogerCanFly, which is MrOnly.tennis. You go on and on. You talk about the record in finals. Nadal right now 85 and 37. That's a 69.7% win percentage in finals. That's third all time behind Borg, Sampras, and McEnroe. You talk about guys with 100 career titles between singles, doubles, mixed, and Davis Cup. Of the most recent guys, it's McEnroe, Mike Bryan, Bob Bryan, Jimmy Connors, Federer, Ilie Nastase, Stan Smith, Ivan Lendl, and now Rafa Nadal. You talk about most titles without dropping a set. Rafa now with this championship, and by the way, he didn't drop a set the entire time. 27 victories for him without dropping a set in the tournament. That's the most in history. Federer's got, I believe, 21. Or I don't know if that's the most in history, but that's certainly the most active. Federer's got 21. Djokovic has got 18. No one else on tour above 10. So that's another one. You talk about titles after the age of 30. Rod Laver had 47. Federer's at 36. Rosewall 33. Arthur Ashe 20. Rafa Nadal right now 16. So he's fifth. And just again, they're rewriting every single one of these records. Most titles without dropping a set. I'm trying to see. I think this is another one, and then we can move on. But for this one, tennis players with more titles on hard courts between 1968 and 2020. So in the Open era, Rafa Nadal, not Rafa Nadal. This is a Djokovic stat. All right, Westhoff, give me a rewind sound effect, please. I apologize for all of you who are going to have to see that rewind, me struggle on video there. But yeah, the point is, Rafa Nadal accomplished just a ridiculous start to his season, and if Novak Djokovic wasn't, what is he now, 18-0? Maybe I think he is 18-0 now after he knocks off Stefanos Tsitsipas 3-4. We'd probably be talking about how ridiculous it is that the 33-year-old Rafa has looked this good on the hard courts this late in his career. It's all working right now for the Spaniard. And again, I do want to say shout out to Taylor Fritz, who by making the first final and ATP 500 of his career is up to a new career high of number 24 in the live rankings. But as I mentioned, we'd be talking more about Rafa if this guy Novak Djokovic just wasn't so good. I mean, you talk about what Djokovic has accomplished thus far in his career. What he's accomplished thus far in his career is ridiculous. But this season, 3-4 against Tsitsipas here was just in control. And I think Tsitsipas has that Federer-like quality of intimidated by Djokovic on the stage is the wrong word, but Stefanos Tsitsipas is going to, or not intimidated would be too strong, but he's going to swing through all of his problems. He's going to play aggressive. He's going to play to win no matter what. That's just his style of playing, and so he has that fearlessness, that element to his game where you could even tell early on, he's like, look, Novak, you're really good. You're really fast. You're going to hit your passing shots, whatever, but I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to play big. I'm going to go for my shots and try and come to the net as frequently as possible. The problem is this version of Novak Djokovic is just not, you can't beat him right now. I mean, that's not hyperbole, literally undefeated in the 2020 season here. He gets that break in the first set after Tsitsipas comes to the net on a really good point, 30-40. I think it was his first or second break point chance of the set even. And, Tsitsipas did a really good job working the ball around. He got the forehand he wanted. He approached to the Djokovic backhand. Just in the end, Djokovic too good with the backhand dip, cross-court pass. He gets the break, hold serve after that, 6-3 first set. Now, to Tsitsipas' credit, he goes down a set and a break in this one, and again, Tsitsipas able to get the break back right away for 3-all, I think, in that second set. He then holds 4-4-3, but Djokovic just rock solid. It didn't matter what Tsitsipas wanted to do. Tsitsipas tried camping on the ad side of the court, so he could hit plenty of forehands. Didn't matter. Djokovic still did a good job of finding the backhand, and by the way, he opened up a lot of space. So Novak Djokovic plenty comfortable going with the backhand down the line and just finding those patterns as he always does. And you talk about this from the Novak Djokovic perspective again, in terms of what he accomplished in this early portion of the year. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You look at the milestones he's racked up for Djokovic. I mentioned the undefeated start. He's now second. That's his 59th title on a hard court. That's second most of the Open era. He's 12 behind Federer right now. You talk about for Djokovic what else he accomplishes with this. This is his seventh time in his career that he's won 20 consecutive matches or more. You look at the players who have accomplished that. Jimmy Connors has done it 9 times. Federer, Lendl have done it 7. Nadal's done it 6 for the record. That, by the way, that comes from @YoungTennisGuns as well as the ATP Media Info Twitter accounts. But that's just ridiculous. You keep moving on. It's the 7th title Djokovic has won, saving match point during the tournament. That he's done it twice at majors feels kind of crazy as well. Obviously, those coming against Federer at the Wimbledon in 2019, Federer at the U.S. Open in 2011. You talk about other things. Again, Novak Djokovic now now. He's 8 different tournaments, according to @YoungTennisGuns, that he's now won 5+ times those tournaments: the Australian Open, Beijing, Miami, the ATP Finals, Wimbledon, Indian Wells, Paris, Dubai, and now I guess not this one as well. Dubai is the one that you add in for him. I was thinking Acapulco for Rafa. He's done it 6 times. Both of those guys trail Fed, who's won a tournament 5 times at 9 different sites, which is just ridiculous. And we can talk. I mean, but all 3 of these guys have done it. I mean, there's a reason they keep racking up all of these accomplishments. And so more and more of these things are going to break down. Last 2, I swear, we mentioned it for Nadal. He's made 17 straight years with a final. For Djokovic, it's been 15 straight years, 2006 all the way through to 2020. There are a couple of active other streaks still in play. Monfils, by the way, by making a final already this year. He's done it 16 straight years. Isner's done it for 10 straight years. Hint, hint. There's an Atlanta final in his future, I promise, folks. But really impressive stuff for Novak Djokovic. And then, I talked about his 7th title from match point down. He's the most, I believe, in the 21st century, according to @AnnaK Forever. He's got 7. Murray's got 6. Nadal, Roddick 5. Davydenko, Federer, Ferrero, Isner have done it 4 times. The most interesting inclusion on that list, Ivo Karlovic has done it 3 times. Stockholm, Nottingham, Newport. So shout out to you, Ivo Karlovic. But seriously, I mean, what are we supposed to say about Rafa and Novak that we haven't already? Those are your 2 prohibitive favorites, as they always are, entering the Sunshine Duo swing. That was the big result on Championship Saturday. We still do have some championships to take care of on Sunday for our usual event, and of course we'll talk about all of those on the Sunday Night Mini Break podcast with Jamie McDonald and myself. But just to set the scene for you, we'll start in Santiago. We've got a really fun next-gen final set up as Thiago Seyboth Wild attempts to become the youngest player to win an ATP tour title during the Latin America Golden Swing since Rafa did it in 2005 at Acapulco. Rafa 18 at the time, Seyboth Wild 19. He's going to take on by someone who's by no means a grizzled veteran in Casper Ruud, who already won a title this year on the dirt. Both of those guys straight set winners yesterday. Seyboth Wild 1-3 over Renzo Olivo. Casper Ruud 7-6, 6-2 over Albert Ramos Vinola. As you look at for both of those guys, the implications in the rankings. Casper Ruud right now already up to number 36. A win today would get him to a new career high of number 28 and inside that top 30. So that would be really impressive for Ruud. You talk about for Thiago Seyboth Wild. I mean, this result already skyrocketing him up the rankings. He's up to a new career high of number 131. A win today would get him inside the top 115 into that 113, 112 range. So 2 really fun guys too. They're not dirt. I think they both have range outside of just the dirt, but 2 guys who are going to certainly succeed on the clay throughout the duration of their careers. So really fun to see them get an early look at one another in a final already. At the challenger level, 3 really fun finals across all 3 in Pau, France, and this will have already finished at the time I'm recording this, but Ernest Gulbis going to take on Jerzy Janowicz. If I told you that match happened in 2010, you might honestly think it happened in a Wimbledon round of 16 or a French Open quarterfinal, something funky like that, because there was a time when those 2 felt like they could make a top 10 push. But fascinating to see that final happening at the challenger level in Columbus. Mentioned this yesterday, 6 challengers in Columbus or Cleveland since the start of 2019. All of them have featured either J.J. Wolf or Torpegaard in the final. It's going to be J.J. Wolf here this week, and he's going to take on Dennis Istomin in what should be a really fun home crowd feel for that match. And then Calgary, Canada. Rinderknech Cressy, part 2. Big serving, big hitting, 2 former college All-Americans. It's what you want, folks, out of your championship Sunday. So we still do have some tennis to wrap up. And, of course, if you've missed any of the action from throughout the week, be sure to check out our website, crackrackets.com, to find our coverage of all of the various tournaments that went on in what was a jam-packed week of tennis. And, it's not just the website. The more immediate updates, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Hopefully you guys have checked out those accounts at Cracked Racquets, at Great Shot Pod. If you're not a part of tennis Twitter, you're really missing out on an essential feature, in my opinion, of the fan experience. And in fact, I wrote a little bit about that on our website, crackedrackets.com, this past week. So be sure to go check that out as well. There's also college tennis matches this Sunday, in case you've missed any of that. In case you really do, you're like me, you need at least 4 hours of tennis viewing on any given day. And honestly, 4 hours does feel about right. I don't even think that's hyperbole. But some really fun matches sprinkled throughout the day. On the men's side, Texas at NC State, Ohio State at Georgia, Wake at Oklahoma State, Stanford at TCU. On the women's side, Wake Forest going to Georgia Tech, Virginia at NC State, and then battle between two top 5 teams. Number 5, Ohio State, going down to Tallahassee to take on the Seminoles of Florida State. Really fun day of action, and of course we will recap all of that on next week's mini break. The reason we are able to churn out so much content, of course, due to our super producers, Max Fligner and Daniel Westoff, who, as always, have a of an editing job to do. But that should do it for that Championship Saturday recap. Again, if you missed any of the action, be sure to check out our website, crackedrackets.com. A huge shout-out to our friends at Diadem Sports who make these sort of weekend podcasts possible. Be sure, diademsports.com. Use the promo code CR50. Get 50% off all of your tennis gear needs. Put yourself in the best position, folks, to succeed heading into what is your 2020 tennis playing season. But with all of that said, I also have to give a shout-out, of course, to our friends at ArrowBar, the tennis-specific energy bar. Use the promo code CRACK30, 30% off of your nutritional needs. I'll tell you what, when you're as hungover as I am, nothing feels better in the morning than putting that ArrowBar in your stomach and just letting the alcohol attack it. And so it's not just for tennis purposes, folks. It's a great hangover cure as well. I will give it an official signed-off Alex Gruskin testimonial. But with that in mind, for the super producers, Max Fligner and Daniel Westoff, for our friends at both ArrowBar and Diadem Sports, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You know what we say. That's the break, folks, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.